Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Mike Force Podcast. Happy Tuesday to you. Sorry there's a slight delay. I was going to do a podcast yesterday. I actually have a podcast this evening with my buddy Ben Light, an endurance coach that I want you to hear from on improving yourself in this health and wellness journey that I'm on. I need to get on the bandwagon. I spent 12 hours driving all day yesterday. It was an amazing ride. I hung out with my buddy Kyle and his amazing wife at their place called Best Life, I believe it's coffee, or Best Life Coeur d'Alene. But they have a coffee shop tied to their shop. It's like a boutique in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Hung out with them and also got to do a men's retreat. Play my part in the men's retreat, focused on survival. We made some fires. We talked about stopping the bleed. We even cooked up some carnival, some of that freeze-dried top sirloin that has a 25-year shelf life. Really amazing time. And as always, it's good to hang out with my buddy Jack Osborne. Jack, obviously being Ozzy Osbourne's son, just went through the profound trauma of losing his dad. We had a conversation about it. We talked about getting self-improved through these men's retreats, focused on journeys, spirituality, and health and wellness protocols. It's why I'm launching Wolf 21 Wellness Retreats starting next month, maybe November, depending on the landowner and if we can secure that land. The first one's likely going to be in Driggs, Idaho. Again, I'm waiting on the landowner to get back with me. If that's the case, it will be released first and foremost on my Patreon, which is always linked down below. When I think about my journey in health and wellness, I can't help but talk about God and spirituality. One of the things that is very profound for me is this trauma that I've experienced, and it's currently ongoing, despite a lot of it being completed and adjudicated recently, which is good news because the false allegations against me were thrown out, which is awesome. But I still have lots of challenges in family court, working through the system to restore and reunify my relationship with my children as the state thinks they're a better father than I am. That's a sidebar and longer conversation. I've also been put in a financial situation of hardship where I have to sell my house. Actually, in an hour, the people putting my house on the market will be here to do audio, video, and pictures. And it's bittersweet looking out through the window behind the camera and seeing where I raised my babies, where I have profound memories. And soon it will be all gone. At least the tangible, material components of it will be gone. So as we all struggle, I've found that getting back to my priorities and putting God first has helped. Last weekends, a couple days ago, preaching to the choir was focused on God, family, country, which I've described as being one of Charlie Kirk's last posts, where he says, after God, family, country, in that order. And that's the hierarchy. And I speak to this because I think there's profound challenges that we're facing as a nation. Today, the National Security Advisor to the President of the United States, Mike Waltz, Secretary Rubio, and the President of the United States are speaking at the UN. One, advocating for America and saying, what are we doing? Secretary Rubio talked about Haiti, for example, where it's in our hemisphere, and the UN has not helped at all. The Ukraine and Russian war, what has the UN done besides circle the drain? I mean, Trump's the only one who's actually advocated for an end to the war while we pump billions of dollars into the war machine. One of the things that I think is going on in this country when I describe spiritual warfare, which is pretty abstract as an idea. I think of it not as angels and demons, not as a metaphysical fight, but as a human battle. where we as people contest with our own spirituality this dilemma of the desire to sin and also the necessity for survival. It drives us, in some cases, mad. And without virtue, without values, without religion, where are you left? Who do you worship? Because even atheists worship something. Do you worship the influencer who's telling you how to make enough money so you could buy Lamborghinis? Do you worship the talking head who tells you if you follow my protocol, you'll be successful? One thing I respected about Muslims overseas is most of them were devout. They were committed to their cause. Even the men that I've been engaged with in battle, I had a lot of respect for them. I imagine, like the stories I've heard from World War II and Vietnam era vets who respected the enemy. Now, they would engage the enemy and would not hesitate, but they for sure respected their commitment to their cause. When I see devout Muslims overseas, they're not doing it for TikTok, for the gram, for their persona. They're doing it because they believe. They wake up very early in the morning, praying 5 times a day. They follow all the traditions, and in some cases, radical ideology that leads them to martyr themselves, the full spectrum of devoutness. And then I look at our circumstance, even paying attention to what's going on in the UK and Canada and Australia, these allies of ours that have completely lost their way, where they're so inclusive, they forgot to include their national identity, their culture, their traditions. They've abandoned them, in fact. I see guys fighting for the cause, and sometimes I think to myself, maybe it's too late. Maybe it's a lost cause. Are we doomed? Even the non-believer believes. But again, when you don't have a value system, a God, what do you worship? You worship other things. Radical ideology. You become consumed and obsessed instead of in scripture and morality and family. Instead, you become consumed and obsessed with your idea. This idea that's planted inside of your head that you really don't know a lot about. But it becomes your cause. And then it produces violent extremists, Antifa, all of these movements that are hell-bent on, instead of being open-minded to defining really in a short-lived way the enemy versus the friendly, the friend versus the foe. And when you draw that line in the sand and you look at everybody who disagrees with your idea and you call them an enemy, it becomes dangerous. You're willing to commit an act of violence in our country against Charlie Kirk because you didn't like his ideas, because his ideas didn't align with yours. So the absence of God, and I'm technically preaching to you, but I'm also telling you it's a profound problem, and maybe there are solutions. With the absence of God, especially with men, without adventure, without structure and discipline, well, I mean, the natural trajectory is in the dirt. It's to fall out of the sky and land in the dirt and tumble. The overwhelming majority of men in prison grew up without a father. And because we have this toxic feminine movement that has declared a war on masculinity, whereby I can't even discipline my daughter because if I tell her I'm going to spank her butt if she hurts her brother, then that's looked at as abuse. True story. True story. So the contrast to that is we don't discipline our children. Our children grow up because the toxic institution decides they know better with their Marxist values of destroying the nuclear family. They know better than we do. And the ideals that are pumped and manifested into these children's heads aren't realistic and aligned with truth. My biggest fear is that we're too far gone. It's hard to reel it back when you're too far gone. But I had hope this weekend when I saw the journey these men were going through. And now I get Charlie Kirk's movement with Turning Point USA and how his focus was the youth. Because we won't. Middle-aged people won't. Even if you're in your 20s and 30s, won't define the generations to come. The children being born right now, the little babies and toddlers and children being raised right now will. If you have no value because your religion is your idea, it's not God, it's an idea, what values are you imparting on your children? And that's a broader question. How are you able to raise a family if your religion is material things? Popularity, money, greed, lust. So I think the way that we change the world is starting with us as individuals, finding God, focused on God, and then building opportunities for people to influence others in a positive way. Not cults, sects, militias, groups. I debated whether or not to make the opportunity of Wolf 21 wellness retreats to be one aligned with faith. And now the answer is clear. It will be. But it will be a man who's convicted, who believes in God and the priorities outlined in the Bible that a lot of men respect, to have that conversation, to lead them through and train the trainer. Not train and advise and guide the subordinate, the ranger private, but the squad leader, the team leader, the captain, the one that's going to go forward and influence their family. That's what this retreat is going to be about. Of course, the tactics are part of that. One of the things that I did prior to arriving for my block of instruction during the retreat was I went through breath work with Tommy and Sky that run an organization teaching breath work protocol. And I've been through a whole bunch of breath work. Box breathing. Oh, is that what we're going to do? I already got it. But it wasn't that. A lot of us think we can't get better and well because we don't have the time, the resources. And I get it. A $10,000 hybrid sauna in your garage is not likely if you don't have the money. But what is attainable is an open heart and an open mind, and realizing that the experience that I realized in this breath work, that the answer and solution lies in you. Nobody else. Not in a protocol external to you, but within you. And when you're taught that and train the trainer, because you're taught the technique and you breathe through this workshop, which I went through an hour of it with Voskin. If you're not familiar with my Patreon, He is training protection dogs for people. He also gifted me my amazing dog, Shogun. But if you have an open mind and an open heart and you go through that protocol like I did, you realize afterwards, wow, a lot of the work, a lot of the sustainment of your initial investment is in you. A lot of the things that we go through every single day has to do with our inability to downregulate and control our nervous systems. We're just a wreck. We're sympathetic, fight or flight or freeze, and we're living in fear and impending doom constantly. We can't drive down the road without being hyper stimulated and vigilant, freaking out when somebody cuts you off, raging over insignificant things that don't matter. I just learned this morning about how a lot of the things that we express and how we react has nothing to do with the person that we're reacting to, but the suppression of the things we're going through. I've been going through a lot. Again, as I stare out of this window and see where my babies were raised, knowing that my house goes on the market next week. I mean, they're coming right now to take pictures of my house because I could no longer afford to live here. Because my ex, when she made allegations and I had to get lawyers for all the cases, it broke me. I lost my job. I lost the company I started. I lost my book deal. And what do I have left? Almost nothing. Or do I? As long as I have my health and my family and God, which I always have, I'm good. And now I don't have to seek the external protocol. I don't have to have a fancy gym or a red light therapy sauna. I have a lot of the solutions in me. I have a lot of the answers in me. This health and wellness protocol is important to me, and I want to do it the right way. Part of it will be for profit. When my church gets approved, then we will start segueing into the nonprofit, and I'll be giving people the opportunity to come at no charge. That's my promise. Something I realized about my own experience and going through hardship and going through this experience with you by communicating it, by being vulnerable, really vulnerable, is when you sit in a church pew and you're being talked to in one-way communication, that's one element of religion. But there are other elements that can improve your life that require movement, attention, action. Church, by its design and its traditions, has been typically preaching to the choir. One-way disseminated communication. I don't intend to preach that way. I intend, one, to talk about my experiences, to have an open dialogue, and to include action. To include therapeutic means via the techniques from the experts. I'm not the expert. But getting people to have physical interactions with one another, to learn how to make a fire, to camp together, to break bread together, to exercise together, to build community with the foundation and base being God. God first. There's a lot going on in the world. I think we're taking our first breath because I've been holding it since Charlie Kirk was killed. And there's a bunch of controversy, which is the closeout on this. My Patreon's linked down below. I have a Tuesday episode called Tuesday Sit Rep. It was Monday Sit Rep, but I missed Monday, where it'll be kind of the uncensored version where I'll focus on my ideas about this. But there are a lot of theories going on about how he got shot, the angle, and I'm not necessarily as focused on that because a lot of it, to be honest, is BS. It's fake. It's fiction. What I'm more concerned with is who else is involved. Because I don't buy that one person only was involved. He scripted an alibi. He tried to provide top cover to friends and associates. And I think it's going to come out that there's more people than just him that are involved. And I would not be surprised if there was foreign interference. Would you? You shouldn't be surprised at that at all. You shouldn't be surprised at that at all. I'm headed off to the underground to talk about this. I hope you guys are having a good week. This week I have a podcast with Ben Light on endurance, giving you tips and protocols that I'm getting in real time to help improve my physical condition. And also, I have a reacts video on my main channel at Mike Glover channel, which again is all linked down below. I appreciate you guys. I hope you have a good week. Till next time. Peace.